Meeting will now come to order. Let's all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Attention, salute, pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Zalman, please call the roll.
President Conley,
Here.
Director Emig,
Here.
Director Hogan, Vice President Kindig,
Here.
Director McKinney,
Present.
Director Meese, here. Director Miller,
Here.
Director Whitmer, here. Director Wolverton,
Here.
Director Hogan,
Here.
9 present.
Thank you, Mrs. Allman. I'd like to welcome all the members of the public and all our guests here tonight. We're looking forward to a good meeting, and we have some presentations to begin. Before we get started, I'd like to introduce to you a stand-in for our solicitor, Mr. Pratt. Also with Saxton Stump is Mr. Mike Lewis. So he's going to be sitting in that seat tonight. So thank you for joining us.
Thank you,
Mr. Lewis. All right, Chair recognizes Dr. Weisling for our first presentation on the postseason athletic achievements.
Thank you, Director Conley. As always, and once again, thank you, Dr. Houck and the rest of the Board of Directors for providing this time and this opportunity for the athletic department to recognize and celebrate the accomplishments of our student athletes. It's always a pleasure to bring forward our coaches and our teams and our student athletes who have had very successful seasons, and they've advanced to postseason from the 24-25 winter season, attending District 3 and POAA state championships. So once again, thank you for this opportunity. Some of our student athletes aren't able to attend tonight because they're involved in their spring sport activity or possibly working or other obligations. So just wanted to recognize that at this time. So we'll start out with Coach Scott Schimmel, who is the head coach of our wrestling program. Coach Schimmel.
Hello. Once again, I'd like to thank the board for actually sanctioning a girls wrestling team in this last fall. It saved us a lot of headache this year, especially with our team points, because just the 3 tournaments I put our girls in this year would have cost it been 9 points against our 22 points that were allotted. So first off, I'll start with our boys. Carter Hoffman, who's not here, he plays volleyball. He was a district qualifier this year. He's a junior, so this was his 3rd year qualifying for districts. He'll be a senior next year. Carter, fortunately, we have a week in between sectionals and districts, and he actually got hurt at one of our practices in between there. So he wasn't very successful. He went 0-2 at districts of Spring Grove this year, but not because of lack of effort, but his body just couldn't do it. He got a stinger in his hip, and that with wrestling, the kind of the parts of your body you have to use for that, it didn't allow him to be successful there. On talking of Carter, next year, I think he's sitting at 76 wins as of right now. So next year, we're hoping it's going to happen before we get into postseason, but he should hit his 100-win mark next year at some point late in the season, which I believe he'll be the 5th or 6th kid that's done that in the history of Dover. So we are looking forward to that next year. We are going to be making announcements through our Facebook page, I'll have Dr. Weisling do it through the Dover, all his avenues through the Dover stuff to let you guys know when that may happen, because that's something that is really, we should be celebrating. That's a tough thing to do, is get 100 wins in your career, especially in wrestling. On to the girls. As I said before, we put our girls in 3 tournaments that were junior high and high school. Every tournament we put those girls in, we had at least 2 girls place, and the most we had 4 place at one of those tournaments. Junior high, we had Malia Federley and Amani Childs that both placed at tournaments for that, and I think they are 7th and 8th grade. They'll be moving up through the program. And then our high school, of course, Jazari Abney, who sort of everything has taken special consideration around with her achievements she's had through the years. Every tournament she was in going into postseason, she placed either 1st or 2nd. The only 2 girls that she lost to in those tournaments going in prior to postseason, actually met each other in the finals at PIAA States this year. So she lost to the two girls that were the finalists this year up at Hershey. She was sectional champion up at Susquehanna districts. She placed third. And then, of course, at PIAA States, she placed fifth, which actually the girl that she beat in the fifth place match was actually the girl that beat her in the opening round up there. So to be able to get that sort of that revenge match going into the fifth and sixth place match, we were really happy with that. Looking into the future, our youth program had their skating party this past a few weeks ago, where Jazari actually went and got to speak to all of the youth wrestlers, all the girl wrestlers that are going to be coming up through. So we're looking at probably within the next 3 to 5 years. I think there's around 15 girls that should be coming out of that program. Next year, one of our youth wrestlers, Piper Little, I think she came and spoke when we were doing we were doing our proposal to get girls wrestling sanctioned. She actually just placed at both the Keystone qualifier states and the PJW states. So I'm hoping that she'll be carrying that her achievements and her work ethic all the way through until she gets up into the high school level. So like I said, going into next season like that, I really appreciate what the board did, helping us get girls wrestling sanctioned. It made our season a lot easier. Just hopefully next year get some more coaches to help out, because it was a long season, where at the start of November till we were done in March. I think I had one weekend off where we didn't have a boys tournament, a girls tournament, where I wasn't helping out with junior high. But again, I thank you, and like I said, Jazari was our all-star this year. So if you ever see her, like I said, make sure you congratulate her. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Coach Schumann.
Yes, and Jazari was going to be here this evening, but she has to work. So I'm going to move now to our district swim qualifiers, and we have Coach Ross Spangler and Coach Lauren Craig here. Coach Judd Piccino is actually working over at our lacrosse game, but he wished the swimmers well.
Good evening. Thank you, Board of Directors and Administration, for, like Dr. Wiesling said, taking the time to recognize this group of student athletes. They are more than deserving to be recognized. They've worked really hard, both in the classroom and in the water this season. So we had 7 that qualified for the district meet, which was held at Cumberland Valley at the end of February. 5 of those 7 are here this evening, but I want to start by reading off their events that they qualified for, starting with the girls. So Aubrey Coble, who is here tonight. Aubrey, wave your hand. Aubrey qualified individually for the 200-yard freestyle and the 500-yard freestyle, which for high school swimming, those are your distance events. She was in for the long haul. And then we have Macy McDowell next to her. She was the opposite. She was our sprinter. So she was our 50-yard freestyle qualifier. And then we also had Mia Lamparter, who's not here this evening. She qualified for the 100-yard breaststroke. On the boys' side, we have Mason Hockenberry here behind me. He qualified individually in the 100-yard butterfly and 100-yard backstroke. Brogan Myers, who is at lacrosse practice right now, actually a game, he qualified in the 100-yard freestyle and the 200-yard freestyle. And then Owen Downey and Evan Lamison, they teamed up with Mason and Brogan. They qualified for the 400-yard freestyle relay. I also want to mention that same group of boys, earlier in the season, they accomplished the feat of setting a new pool record at our nice natatorium over there in the 200-yard freestyle relay. So they hold that current pool record, and they set that bar pretty high. So we hope that stands for a while now. I also want to mention that Mason's butterfly time at districts was the second fastest 100 butterfly time in Dover program history. So that is, dating back 50 years roughly of times. He is the second fastest ever. So that was quite the accomplishment. And he has put in the work to get there. That was not an easy feat by any means. I also want to mention that of our 7 that qualified for districts, only 2 of them are seniors, and that's Evan and Mason. So we are lucky in the fact that we get to have all of these -2 return next year to be fast in the water. But most importantly, this group has really been solid in the classroom as well. We had 3 total seniors on the team this year. Mason and Evan included, and also Ava Mavula, who was one of our divers. All three of them have accomplished the feat of being a NISCA, which is National Interscholastic Swim Coaches Association, Academic All-Americans. And to accomplish that, that's a national recognition. You have to have an extremely high GPA. You also have to be a varsity level student athlete. So we were 3 for 3 on that this year, so we couldn't be more proud of how they represented our team as senior class members and set that bar for our underclassmen. So we are sad to see Mason and Evan graduate, but we are happy that they are continuing their swim careers. Mason will be competing next year with Shippensburg University, and Evan will be competing at Messiah University. So we wish them the best of luck. And again, thank you for taking the time to recognize this group tonight. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And our final presentation this evening will be Coach Caitlin Rowan, and she's here with members of her PIAA State competitive cheer team. Caitlin?
Good evening, members of the board, faculty, and community. Sorry. As a coach, I could say that proud is an understatement when it comes to describing dedication, resilience, and growth our cheerleading team has demonstrated this season. This year marked only our 3rd season since reintroducing competitive cheerleading to our school's athletic program. And what an incredible journey it has been. Cheerleading is quite unique in the world of athletics as it encompasses 2 distinct yet equally demanding aspects. So I'm going to break those down for you here quickly. First, we have sideline cheerleading, which plays a vital role in school spirit and community engagement. These athletes are responsible for energizing the crowd, supporting our sports team from the sidelines, and fostering a positive and encouraging atmosphere at every game. Their presence is not just about performance, it's about leadership, unity, and pride in our school. And then we have competitive cheerleading, which is a highly skilled and rigorous judged sport that challenges our athletes in every way. Teams are given just 2 minutes and 30 seconds to execute a choreographed routine that combines stunting, tumbling, jumps, dance, and precision timing while being scored against a detailed and subjective rubric. The stakes are high and the margin of error is pretty small. This season, we placed 4th in the county. At districts, we placed 7th, and we missed advancing to day 2 at the PIAA State Championship by 3 points. What most people don't see is the incredible amount of preparation that goes into this short window of time. Our athletes train year-round to build strength, perfecting technique and developing a mental toughness required to perform under pressure. Their commitment is truly extraordinary, just like every other athlete that has been talked about tonight as well. We are grateful for continued support from our administration, families, and community, and your encouragement plays a crucial role in the success of this program. Tonight, I have 4 of my 12 athletes that competed at the PIAA State Cheerleading Championship, and I just want to take a second to recognize them. The first one on the far right in the 3rd row is Sophia Dietz.
There you go.
Next is Elena Harlacher, Lindsay Whaler, and Isabella Hom. We are excited for the future of cheerleading in our school, and we look forward to building on the foundation that we have created so far. With each season, our athletes continue to push boundaries, aim higher, and inspire pride in all of us. So thank you for believing in them, and thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you, Coach Rowan.
Just in quick summary, in addition to the hard work and dedication and commitment of our student athletes, I have to also recognize all the parents that are here who are taking those children everywhere they need to be. Did it for a while myself. So it's amazing what our parents do for our children, as well as the time and energy spent by our coaches. That passion that you heard them give tonight, they give 24/7. And it's amazing the amount of time and commitment they put into it. So thank you so much for this recognition. I appreciate it. Nice certificates for all of our students. I'll just meet you out here.
Let's give them a hand. Thank all of you, and congratulations to each one of you. thank you for that presentation, Dr. Weisling and coaches, and we're proud of the students for their accomplishments. That's pretty great when you make it state. Let's go now to agenda item 2.02, a budget presentation by our CFOO, Mrs. Miranda Weaver.
All right, so there have been a couple of changes to the numbers since March. We had a couple retirements, which gave us additional retirement savings, as well as I believe we're going to get some additional EIT revenue from what I've seen come in the last couple months. So that updated our deficit to about a $2.5 million. If you look at the deficit with the board cuts, it takes it down to about $2.1 million. I know there was a lot of discussion in March with regards to whether or not some of these items were ones we wanted to continue to have in the budget. So what we did is we itemized everything for the board and the public to take a look at when it's time to have that discussion. We will come back around to this slide. Obviously, the other thing that came up too was the fact that the majority of the board didn't seem to want to have any additional cuts made. So in order to fund the $2.1 million deficit, we either have to raise taxes, use fund balance, or both. Just one thing to keep in mind when deliberating is that we could possibly, with the current budget, see an additional $1.1 million. So that is what's in there right now. There's a possibility it's not going to be quite that high, but we will see more money than we currently have in the budget. So it's definitely something to think about when discussions are being made. And this is just another snapshot of the different increases in the millage and what taxpayers would pay depending on what the assessment of your home is. This is the assessment value by property type. I obtained this information from the York County Assessment Office. As you can tell, 80%, almost 80% of our assessments are residential. For overall average, York County is only 67%. So obviously we are very heavy in residential versus commercial and industrial because we're only 7% here in Dover. However, the overall average is 10% in York. And I just put this up in case somebody hasn't had a chance yet to go to the website. It shows you exactly where it is and if you put your assessment value in, even if you click on the link, you can find what your assessment value is from the York County assessment website. And if you put it in and you play with the millage, you can see what the different changes would be. A couple updates from the state budget. Obviously, we know that it's not going to pass on June 30th as it did not last year. Cyber charter reform is still on the table. It's not at the 8,000 cap, but it is on another version. We're thinking it's around 10 as of right now, which still is extremely beneficial to the districts. There's still discussion about the need to fund a facility grant upgrades. Private school vouchers are back on the table. And another thing that came up today, but I didn't have a chance to put it onto the slide, was adequacy funding. That is something that looks like it's going to stay in the budget. So I'm very pleased to hear that. So for 24-25, we received $553,000. For 25-26, it looks like we're going to double that, so we'll have the 1.1. And for a 7-year period that started with 24-25, we're going to get the additional 553 each year until the 7-year cap, and then it's going to average out. So that makes a huge difference on the gap we currently have for the deficit. Next steps. We need direction on the proposed cuts, if there's any that the board would like to have removed from the list. If there's going to be what fund balance usage and or millage increase we're going to have for the final budget presentations, if there's a handful of scenarios that the board would like to see, because that will be the last budget presentation before the adopt of proposed final budget in May. So I will go back to the list of cuts, because I do know that that was something that came up during the meeting last month. And open the floor for discussion.
I'll just go ahead and throw this out. This was mentioned in public comment about tissues. They said, why are we discussing tissues when there's other things to look at? So I'll just refer that same question to you.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we're trying to have the least amount of impact to the students in this as we can. And there's been over $5 million in cuts in the last several years, and this is what we have left. So we've dug deep, we've done our homework, we've got under a microscope. And in order to try to come up with some cuts, this is all we have left.
I have a question in regard to facility improvements.
Yes, ma'am.
Would any facility improvements come out of the general fund balance, or would they be capital improvement?
I would have Tom speak to that. I believe his normal repairs and maintenance come out of the general fund, and then anything that would extend the life of the assets would be what would come out of cap reserve. But if you want, would you like me to have him come up and maybe speak to that?
That's okay,
Okay.
for now.
Okay.
I reserve the right to call him.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. So I don't know if it's a good time to ask now, or I'm just going to ask now because the question's going to come up anyway. But like the crosswalks that we want to do, that would be general fund, obviously.
Oh, that would be cap reserve.
Yeah.
Yeah, cap
Would that
reserve.
be cap reserve?
Yes, it would
the
be. Yes,
crosswalks would
yeah,
be?
yes, it would
And
be.
then what about the paving that we're obligated to do? Would that be cap reserve as well?
Can you just refresh my memory on the cost?
So the 23,000?
Yeah, cap reserve.
Okay,
Mhm.
okay. So does that work the same as a general fund where like should we be coming up with a budget in the facilities committee meetings? Like,
I would say no. Typically, I think once we have the facility study, if it's approved, that cap reserve is going to become a crucial part of it as determining what we fix, when we fix it, how fast. Yes, that's going to be a big piece of it.
okay.
So that will be very similar to what you're talking about. Will be something will be talked once the facility study is in place.
But that'll be separate from this. This is
Absolutely,
really
yes,
just
yes,
the general
yes.
fund. Okay.
And you can fund all of those. You could fund the crosswalk and you could fund the paving through the general fund. You absolutely can do that. But you can also fund it through the cap reserve.
Okay. Which would be your prerogative through the cap reserve?
Right now through cap reserve, I would, yes. They're not large dollar amounts, and we are trying to minimize the impact to the budget right now. So once if the board approves the facility study and we see what the numbers roll out, then maybe we can have, a different type of discussion.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any questions for Mrs. Weaver?
I have a question. Is it working?
Yes.
Okay. So can you refresh my memory on the phone and internet budget line item?
Oh, yeah. Mr. Boyd and his team have done some work to put, I think, internet lines under the ground so that we're not paying for it. I think, can you come? Yes, I'm right. You're right. Okay. Internet lines underground. So rather than us have to pay the LIU for those costs, we incurred the cost to install them, and then we no longer pay for the service.
So what is the reduction for?
That's what it is. It's for the work that he's done for the lines. And also there's some additional savings that he had from the phone service.
So I think where you're going with that question is, we're already saving this because of the work he's done, so we wouldn't have to cut this necessarily. We're already saving it?
Yes.
Okay.
It's something that, yes.
Is that what you were asking?
Yeah, yes.
Moving forward, we're going to continue to save that, or we're not doing that now? That's where my question is. It's in here as a possible cut
Mm-hmm.
or savings. So you're saying
That's one of the savings, not
Yes.
necessarily a cut.
Yes.
We've experienced naturally.
Yes.
Mic closer. Yeah. Seems to be directional.
reduction of CTE travel, what does that look like? Do you have any feedback? And I just can't remember the details.
I'm having trouble with that mic.
You know what? I think maybe she needs to hold it up a little higher.
It's not.
I noticed on the replay of the broadcast, we had mics cutting out last
okay.
week, so it might
that
be
working?
something short in that microphone.
What about one of the other mics that's right up front? Do you think maybe that'd be?
Maybe I need to talk louder.
I'll hold it here.
Okay.
Does that work?
With regards to CTE, Mr. Benton put some travel that he normally had paid through Perkins, he put it into the budget because he wasn't sure who the new person was going to be who took over and whether they would build the Perkins budget similar as he did, which is grant money. So that is something that I think that, I mean, it's a possibility that it may not go through the Perkins grant, and Mrs. Miller may have different ideas, but it is something that was added to the budget because of that thought process, and it is something we could try to eliminate by adding it to the Perkins budget.
Okay.
If we add it to the Perkins budget, then what that'll mean is that we can share it. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay. If that's added to the Perkins budget, then there might be other things that we would have bought with Perkins that we're not going to be able to because we're going to use it to pay for the travel.
Right.
So that's where the cut comes in. We just don't know what those things are going to be.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions? The anticipated savings from retirement,
Yes.
those are ones that are already projected to retire, is that right?
Well, they're actually new retirements, so we originally had retirements that were set aside, like you see the ones up to the 125.
Right.
And then we had 2 more retirements, which is where we came up with the 80, almost 81,000 that's new as a reduction for this month. So it's the 2 of them together.
Mhm.
The board and the public had already seen the 125, so I didn't want to commingle them and make it confusing. I wanted to separate that.
Now, I know from your position, you're not in, probably can't answer all of this, but which of the most untenable cuts would we be looking at? I mean, I'm just going in order. I see pool robot cleaner. I don't see that being a good thing to be cutting, just off the top of my head, but in your judgment, which are the ones that would be?
I really think that I would defer to the board to make that. I don't feel comfortable making that statement right now.
Well, here.
Yeah, thanks. So when I think about things that would impact students, the Scholastic News for $6,500 is something that teachers would have to do without. And something that they're used to having, and it is used for instruction. So that's something that I think is important. The graduation sound equipment is another thing. We could use the sound that's in our stadium. If something doesn't go right with that, you're not going to be able to hear very well at graduation. So which is why we typically hire out for that. So that I think is another big one that could have an impact. Marching band parade, field trips, and competitions. Those, again, are things that will directly impact students.
At CTE travel, does that take them out of the submarine competition? Is that what we're looking at?
What it will do is, and I don't know if Mrs. Miller wants to, she's here, but I think you would have to put that into the Perkins grant.
And some of it has, microphone. I am coming to the budget new, and I have tried to look through it. Some of the travel might impact student travel. In terms of if they win a competition and they need to travel, they would not be able to do it. I know for submarines, like we did scuba diving certification. So we have those kinds of things that come out of Perkins. So right now, my Perkins meeting to learn how to do the Perkins grant is tomorrow. So I can't really answer your questions about that because I don't know. And with federal funding in kind of an uncertain place, I also am concerned if that $40,000 goes away or is cut in half, or if something happens with it, we could have some issues there. That's not supposed to happen, but right now there are lots of things happening, and it's a very uncertain landscape in terms of what federal funding will look like.
Okay. You can keep that. I took Craig's. Superintendent should have a microphone. Any other questions?
Yeah, the removal of the pool robot cleaner, I assume that the sanitation of the pool still remain the same, they just have to do it differently by hand or something?
I believe we have a robot cleaner
oh, we
right
do,
now.
yes, we do.
Alright.
This would be making it a new one because the old one is getting old.
It's getting old. It needs repairs, and so it's getting old.
Yeah, I thought we had that discussion before where there's another one coming on board or something like that. But anyway, so we're good with that. Okay. I just didn't want the kids to be.
Oh my gosh, no. We have one that's working. It just has to be fixed.
Okay.
And I think it might have to be fixed multiple times.
It is, yes.
Yeah.
So we had this discussion last board meeting, and I had put out the statement, I don't want to cut anything that's going to directly affect the students or the ability of the teachers to do their job. And probably almost all of that could be put into that category, but I did make a list. And I tallied it up. Thankfully, there's two large line items, the health insurance and the savings from retirements, which took care of most of that, over half of that 400,000 we were looking for. So I put in CTE travel. Dr. Hauk just mentioned the parade, the graduation sound. I put them in. Scholastic, staff development, band music, field trips and competitions, the pool cleaner, because that's a health issue, live streaming, and staff development. I wanted to keep that in also. That all comes up to $83,905. So we're still looking at reductions of over 300,000, which I think is, about the best we can do. But all of these ones
Did you
that,
get those?
I'll listen when we, don't
Yeah.
worry, I'll listen.
Okay.
I'll play back.
Yep.
I'll get it.
yep, live streaming, pool cleaner, field trips and competition, band music, staff development, solicitor at board meetings, scholastic, graduation sound, band parade, and CTE travel, totaling $83,905. They're the ones I'd like to pull out, that I think the impact on students and staff is not worth the minimal cost that some of them are. So that's my recommendation.
It seems like we're gonna need a sheet, and they're gonna have to be tallied up, because everybody's gonna have something different.
Yeah, we
if
may have to.
anything. I don't know how we're gonna come to a conclusion of.
We may
how
have to do it
agree.
that way and see which ones we agree on.
So just to recap what you said, so we're at a deficit now of 2.1, less than 2.1 million.
Right, yes, just shy of 2.1. Mhm.
And I think I heard you say that we're looking at another possible $1.1 million of revenue.
Yes, if that would be if it stayed exactly as is in the budget right now. There's a possibility we're going to get additional basic ed. There's a possibility that we aren't going to see as much as of the cyber. So we're going to get more money. We are definitely going to get more money. How much it is, it's hard to pinpoint.
Right. So we're just looking at $1 million gap here then, right?
Give or take again, if the cyber charter, that's a big, huge piece of it. If that goes away, then, I mean, you're talking $750,000, $800,000 at this point if it's up to 10. So,
Do you think we'll know about that additional 1.1 million before we vote on it?
no,
Okay. Because that's what makes it tricky. We could
yeah.
we could put in a minimal tax increase with the plans of using out of the fund balance.
Right.
The good news is we wouldn't have to use the fund balance at all,
Exactly.
but we could have avoided the tax increase.
Yes. It's a slippery slope. It's
Yeah.
it's very challenging.
Mm-hmm.
Are the two, the long-term sub, can I talk about? So the two long-term sub positions that will be opening up, is that in this?
This is not because this is
So
regular.
we'll have to add that
Yeah.
150, 200,000?
200,000.
Yeah. Agree. Yes.
Okay. Any other questions?
I mean, honestly, truly, we know we're getting the adequacy funding, so that's 553.
So we at least know that that's definitely coming.
Do you have the information you need for May?
I don't, because I need to know what the parameters are. So if you want to see 750,000 of fund balance use and a 2% tax increase, or if you want to do half and half, or I need to know what the board of a whole wants to see as possibilities to vote on.
And you can provide us with two or three different
Yeah,
options.
absolutely, yes. Kind of
As
very
we
similar to
presented in
last
the
time.
past.
Yes.
Yeah, I would like
Yep.
to see like a 1.5, a 2, and a 2.5.
Absolutely.
I had in my mind, I was looking at the numbers, I don't want to go over a 2.5, and if we did do a 2.5, we'd end up using about $1 million out of the fund balance, which we might not have to
Right.
use.
Absolutely.
So that would work out pretty cleanly.
Yes.
But I would like to see that
Okay.
range of percentages.
That's what you're recommending?
If that's, I would like to hear what the board would
Yeah,
like.
anyone else can
Yeah,
suggest as well.
absolutely.
We have 13 million in our fund balance.
Oh, God. Let me go back. I don't remember off the top of my head. Oops. There we go, 16. Now, you can't, 865,000 of it, you can't touch because that's set aside, it's non-spendable. But the rest is available for spending, yes.
So what are you comfortable leaving in the unassigned section of?
Honestly,
balance?
any of those numbers we are not using quite as much of the committed as we had previously, because the committed money had been used to balance out the high claimants and the additional funding we needed for medical premiums. And according to our advisor, our benefits consultant through the LIU, things are turning around and looking better, so I would be comfortable using the committed for this purpose.
Let me ask our treasurer and our chairman of the Resources Committee. Did you talk about this in committee tonight?
We did not. We had discussed whether we wanted to talk about the budget in that committee. Mrs. Weaver stated, and I agree, it's probably best to talk about the budget issue with the entire board.
Because it's a vote, that was the thing. that
Everyone
concerned-
votes on
yeah,
it,
Yeah.
so everyone should hear all the details. We may talk about like 5-year projections and additional like future revenues and stuff, but we will not, anything that's going to be voted on, we're going to bring to the whole board
Okay. I
as
was
we
just
are now.
wondering if your committee had a recommendation on this, because for me, that would have been helpful.
Okay, no, we did not discuss the budget,
Yeah, okay.
proposed budget.
Any other questions from anyone? Any other input? We need to give her what she needs to prepare that preliminary budget.
I'd like to see no additional tax cut, no additional cuts. Leave all that stuff in there. This is personally. Add in what you think the projected additional revenue streams are going to be from the state.
Okay.
And use the fund balance. I don't believe that we should be increasing taxes on our community when we have 15 million in a fund balance. I don't think that's fair. I mean, I know that we get income on interest, like I get that, and that's a line item revenue source, like I get that, but still, I don't feel right at this point in time taxing people when we have the money.
Okay, I could absolutely do that
That's
as
my
well.
opinion.
Are we still getting 5% return?
On what? On your interest?
General
From
fund
Lincoln.
interest.
Is it still in, where is our money?
Oh,
from?
PSLAF. Yeah. It's obviously the feds have cut rates several times this year. So it's like at a 4.2, 4.5-ish. Still doing very, very well.
Basically 40,000, 42,000 per million.
I mean, maybe if we were closer to like 5 million left, then I'd be like, but it's just.
We just have to be careful not to drain that fund balance too quickly. That's only my concern, because I don't want to raise taxes.
That's what I'm
either.
saying. Like, if it was 5 million, I get it.
Yeah.
But I know Central just went through that. Like, they had so much money in their fund balance that, the board committed to using that fund balance. And now, basically, they drained it out and, they had to come up with alternate solutions, you know?
Yeah, they're raising taxes to the max.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, I get the raising taxes year over year. I get the revenue coming in from interest. Like, I get all of that as well. It doesn't sit well with me that we have that much money in our fund balance and we raise taxes.
We do have a healthy fund balance, especially as compared to others in York County. We're like more the top of the echelon with regards to our expenditures.
Yeah,
So I understand.
that's my 2 cents.
But when we look at this fund balance, Director Misa's seeing 16 million, I'm seeing just under 6 million. Because we've got all but 8 million committed for medical claims, technology debt, PSERS. That's committed.
It can all be,
It may not amount to that amount, but
it can all be changed.
it's
with a
set
board vote.
aside.
Can all be changed with the board vote.
And we have 865,000 that we're obligated to set aside. We have 1.6, which we may not spend all that on the 24-25 budget.
Correct.
Right?
Yes,
but
that's correct.
still, it's there. So I guess I look at it a little differently and say, we really only have roughly 6 million in our fund balance. That if we can take some out of that.
It can be changed with a journal entry. Like, it's not.
It's a board, it really is, it's a board vote. It's a board.
I understand that, but I don't, personally, when I look at this, I don't see $16 million sitting there. I'm looking at $6 million sitting there.
6 million is the max we can have.
Yeah, I understand, it's
Okay.
8%.
Right.
I got that. So it's just a difference of how we look at it. And earlier, we mentioned that we're down to roughly, I think it was $2 million, but that in deficit, but that 2 million includes a $400,000 reduction, which we have not formally approved. So we're at roughly 2.4 instead of 2, depending on what we do with that 400,000 that we're talking about.
I mean, there's a lot of variables.
Yeah, there's a
I mean, there's a lot of variables.
there's a lot of moving parts here.
There always are, right?
Terry, you've worked I'm sorry, Director Emick, you've worked a lot of budgets. What are your thoughts on this?
My thoughts is that I use fund balance. I don't want to see any cuts. Fund balance is the way I'm going.
No tax increase?
Nope. You asked my opinion, you got it.
I appreciate that.
So are you saying, Director Emig, you would not take any of those 400,000 out?
Nope.
I just want to make sure I understand.
Yep.
I would probably suggest, you don't have to come up with your list right now, but look at the 400,000 of proposed cuts. We send Mrs. Weaver the list of, over the next week, maybe email her the list of the ones that you want to include, and she could maybe come to a consensus of what the board is looking at.
Absolutely, I could put a spreadsheet together that shows what the consensus was.
I think that would get her moving on the next month there, to see what we are actually willing to include.
Okay. Director Wolverton, what are your thoughts?
No tax increase, take it out of the general funds, and put all $400,000 cuts into effect.
Put them into effect?
Put them into effect, cut them.
And Terry, you were for keeping the 400 or put them into effect?
Keep them.
It's only,
So we're at,
it's only 200.
Yeah.
It's only 200.
Yeah.
Right.
It's only 200 really, because it's retirement and medical premium.
Right, so if we.
Yeah, we're
Smaller items
keeping
are
those.
200, not 400.
Right,
175.
yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, didn't we say we were adding another special needs class that's gonna cost us 200-some thousand.
That's already in the
Oh, that's already
budget.
in figure.
That's not in addition to what we're presenting. That's already in there.
Thank you.
Yes.
So we're,
Very divided.
as of the question you're asking, we're not that far apart, but we are on both margins, both sides of the issue. So
I would
you
maybe
need-
recommend a straw poll to see what you would like me to bring back.
And with that, I'll remind everybody, we have litigation that could, in the future. We could lose.
And that we need to reserve that part of the fund balance. That was in my mind when I don't want to use too much.
Now, keep in mind, we can bring you back different options.
Yeah.
You don't have to agree on one. We could
Yes.
bring you back 2 or 3 different
Yeah, absolutely.
options, and then you can vote on one of those 3, whichever gets the most votes. We just need to know what options you want to see.
Is any other directors prepared to, Director Miller, do you have any thoughts?
I've already given you like a list of some items that I would say not to take out, so I'd like to see that. I'd like to see like the classrooms that we're adding and all of that as well, so a grand total.
Okay, I can give you a grand total. I need what variables you'd like to see. So I do need to know if you want a tax increase or how much fund balance you want to use.
So I've heard keep all of the cuts, all 400 or 200, all of everything on that slide, and use all fund balance. So I've heard that from Mr. Wolverton. I have heard to remove some of those $83,000 worth of to eliminate those cuts, right?
Actually, that was the amount I was keeping out of the, what
Oh,
I
I'm
was
sorry.
keeping total 83,000.
I'm sorry, that you did not want cut. 83,000 you did not want cut.
Correct. 83,000 I did not want cut.
Right.
Correct, yes.
And a 2.5% tax increase with.
I just wanted to see, I wanted to see how much fund balance usage would be with that range of tax increases.
So that was 2.5%.
Up to 2.5.
So basically, yeah, a tax
Zero,
increase.
0 to 2.5.
So it's like a tax increase and use of the fund balance and then total fund balance. And that's basically all I've heard, right? You were concerned about using the fund balance.
Well, I guess when you talk about the fund balance, and if we're gonna do what ifs, we say 7.9 committed. Do we need 7.9 committed? What could we live with in committed?
You could live with no committed if you had to.
But is that
Is it?
the intelligent way to go?
No, it's not. But we have a healthy fund. We have a very healthy fund
Okay,
balance.
so I'm asking for your expertise on, I'd like to see, okay, what would you feel comfortable with in committed? And so then that kind of, for me, that gives me a kind of an idea of, okay, can we take it all out of fund balance or can't we?
I think that we could take it all out. We could take $1 million out. We could take 500,000 out. It all depends. It's a healthy fund balance. Could we do it year after year after year? No.
No.
Are we going to lose out on money that's going to compound from tax increases? Yes. So it could be either or.
Okay, you've answered my question.
Okay.
Thank you.
So I'll give you my opinion. I'm on the fence on, I'm gonna have to listen and we're gonna have to vote, but I was taking in consideration public comment where they've said many times, we don't mind a $50, for an entire year if you were to raise our taxes. So looking at that on median is 1.5%. And then whatever that comes to in totality builds from year on in, so it helps us out in the future.
Yes, it compounds.
But also don't necessarily want to take everything from the fund balance, but I'm okay with that. But to Wolverton's point, to some degree, in that we lose interest when we pull it out. I know you're not supposed to look at it because it's not that way because we're not a business, but that is free, interest money that we're accumulating. So those are kind of my thoughts, what's going through my head. I'm not opposed to tax increase, but I certainly, it's not going to be a lot, you know, $50. We've heard many people say that they don't have a problem with that. So I'm taking our community into mind here, but so those are my thoughts.
Yeah, I'd like to see 0, 1.5, and 2.5% tax revenue, just to see how much of the fund balance we would have to use with that. And then you could do it with and without the budget cuts as well, I guess.
Okay, so which ones though, because are you is it just gonna be the cuts that you suggested having? Is everybody in agreement with that?
I think we need to decide that.
I think so too, because it's only so many variables or so many versions that
So
we
you
can bring.
need one without a tax increase, with everything coming from the fund balance, and then another with a tax increase of like 1.5 to 2.5%. We'd have to agree. Maybe go 2%. 2%, okay with you? 2%.
Okay, so 1.5 and 2, or
Just two.
just 2?
And then whatever the balance is, how that works out. So
Okay.
that's two scenarios. A tax increase and one without.
But what she wants to know is, of the $400,000 cuts, we're obviously keeping the first two line items, 125,000, 102,000.
But
I had proposed keeping some of the items below. She wants to know if
We're going
board's
to
in
send her an
agreement.
email on what we feel, and she's going to have to give a best
Okay.
guess, right?
It'll be a majority, it'll be like a straw poll.
Yeah, it's like
It'll
a
be
straw,
it'll be a
electronic
majority.
straw poll.
It will be an electronic straw poll, yes, it will be.
All right.
We can also, think about this and bring it back to you next week.
That would be
right?
fine too, absolutely, yes.
That's probably.
Sure. I would say by next week, have that
for.
for.
That's okay, absolutely, because I won't be presenting until May
email.
13th, so that's
Right.
absolutely fine.
I tell you, I've been probably one of the most vocal over the last 4 years or so, along with a few others, about not raising taxes unnecessarily. But I also see, the cost down the road. It's like driving towards a cliff. At some point, you're going to have to, bite a big bullet. So you have to, every individual out here has to look at, well, if my taxes are raised 2% now, it's never going to go back down. But what happens if I get a 5.5%, maximum 5.6%?
Yeah, 5.6 this year.
So what happens when I get a 5.6%? What does that look like for me year over year? And I'm just talking about all, every citizen here. That calculator that's on the website, I encourage all the members of the public to look at that and look at the options we're discussing. Whether it's no tax increase now, there's going to have to be a tax increase somewhere, whether it's this year, next year, or the following year. And it may drive us to the point to where we have subsequent years of having to do maximum tax increases. When we first looked at the deficits here for this year, we could not cover it with a maximum tax increase. Now we're hearing much better news.
Yes, we are.
So that's a positive thing. But I personally, I don't want to get into the business of looking at a list like this and say, well, we want you to cut this item. Because in the scope of a $80,000 budget, roughly $80,000 budget, cutting, $2,000 here and $5,000 there. Yeah, I'm sorry, 80 million.
It's okay.
You were trying to mouth a million too. I was wondering what you were doing. I thought you were just licking your lips. I thought you were just licking your lips, and I didn't know what you were saying there, so.
No, I
Yeah.
was trying to be very.
So, yeah, we're talking about a $80 million budget. So, trying to make decisions at this level on whether to cut, one of these things is $459. That to me is, we shouldn't even be considering.
It's
that
not material.
granular of a
Yeah,
cut.
it's not material.
And also, very positive news, this list is not a $400,000 cut, it's $200,000.
Right.
Because we're already, built into that is already some savings. So I think we're actually pretty close here. We just need to make a decision. Do we need to make, as you suggested, a modest, very modest tax increase? I am looking at the litigation that's in front of us, and the potential cost of this keeps going up. Every time we get a briefing on litigation, it keeps going up for us, which we're going to be writing a check straight out of the fund balance whenever we get a judgment on that. So I'm concerned about not having it there, because if we have to write a check on that, then we're looking at immediate impact.
Yes,
We won't be able to address it till the next budget cycle.
Yes, correct.
So that's one of the concerns that I have.
Mhm.
Having said that, the pace of the courts doesn't look like we're going to get, a final judgment this year. So,
But we still need to reserve that amount in our minds
Right,
for the future.
right.
That's why I'm being cautious on fund balance usage, even though I don't want to raise taxes. But we got to be careful with that.
There's one thing we could do also, is when, at the end of the year with the financial statements, we can commit some of the money for the liability, for the litigation. We could commit some of that if the board would so choose.
Okay.
I think that'd be a smart idea.
Yeah.
Because the stuff that's committed now, since you said that we could, I think one of the directors said that we could change it with the ledger entry. Is
Yeah,
it
well,
really
it's a
committed?
it's a board vote.
Is it
yes,
really
yeah.
committed or is
A
it
board
not?
vote, then a journal entry.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, it's committed, but it's committed as a reserve then.
Correct. Yes, it is.
So that's, that changes the context a little bit. I definitely think we need to commit it for that potential judgment, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Agreed.
And we also are looking at, we got some older schools, and nothing has broken major in the last year or so. That could happen anytime.
Yes, it can.
How much do we have in the capital?
I want to say like almost 7 million, I think. I don't know off the top of my head.
Is any of that money obligated? Or
No, none of
do we
it's
have to
obligated.
keep a certain amount in
No,
that? Okay.
no.
You don't have to keep any certain amount, but that is there for what?
I hate to say God forbids, but God forbids facilities,
Right.
projects that are
So we
needed.
have that carved away.
Yes.
So that concern I just raised is taken care of now.
It depends on what that's only $7 million. I mean, it depends on what goes wrong. That's
Well,
the
I think
biggest
when we
piece.
get the facility
That's the
studies
biggest piece, yes,
completed,
yes.
I think the intermediate school has the most needs.
I would agree with you, and I think Mr. Fluke would
So I think we
absolutely.
could very quickly
I agree with that, yes, I believe,
delegate
yes.
that.
Yes,
Yeah, roof could be $1 million.
yes.
So if that could, so that is smart to keep that in there, that capital.
Yeah, and I would definitely, I mean, you can use this for the smaller amounts right now until we determine if the board does vote for the facility study, where we need and when we need it. And then how are we going to pay for it?
When's that facility study supposed to be back?
It's going to be voted on, Mrs. Meese?
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Mm-hmm.
Okay, and so.
It's on my agenda to go over.
Okay. How long will it take for us to have the study done? That's about a 6-month project, isn't it?
So Mr. Fluke is going to ask specifically, he doesn't know of a specific time frame. We need to vote on who we want to use. And then once we determine who we want to use, he can reach out to them
Yes.
and probably very quickly turn around that answer. But we don't have an answer right now because we have 7 proposals that we got back.
Right. So that we're, on that issue, then, we're kind of in the same position of betting on what happens with the governor's budget, too. So,
Yeah.
That could go either way. This could take some time. We're definitely not going to know that information before, we have to vote on the budget.
No.
Yeah. Something tells me to just be cautious going through this year's cycle, budget cycle, so that we don't get ourselves in a pinch. We can definitely not raise taxes next year if everything goes as well as it could.
Right.
But maybe a modest this year might not be a bad idea. That's kind of what I'm thinking.
There are a lot of unknowns right now, yes.
Yeah.
There are a lot of unknowns.
I don't think we should I'm just going to keep standing up for no tax increase. I want everybody to keep in mind too, now that we have a committee that can work on a 5 to 10 year plan, we can be better informed. So we're just we're just guessing at so many things right now. But like with the litigation that we have, like that can be in that plan, that rolling plan, so we can be way more educated. So I want to just hesitate, like we have the money. Why don't we just use the fund balance, get that 5-year plan in place, and allocate those monies, you know, redistribute some of them in categories and stuff, and then we can be better educated next year to be able to defend our decision. But right now, it's like, well, let's do a 1.5% increase because we think that we want to be safe. You know, I mean, no, let's do a 1.5% increase because year over year, it's going to multiply out for this much, and we have these expenses. Like, there's no justification to it right now. You know, I guess that's probably why I'm uncomfortable with it.
I tend to agree with you. When we have these developments that are coming along, we have increased number of personnel moving into these apartments that are being built throughout the township. I see no reason to increase the taxes this time.
Yeah.
We don't know what the federal government's going to do with $280 billion. You keep hearing it's going to be pushed down to the states. Well, let's see what happens.
And then how do we tell our teachers and administration we're cutting $200,000 worth of things and we have $15 million in a fund balance? You know, so we're having to tell our citizens that we're increasing taxes, and we're having to tell our teachers that we're taking tools and resources away from them, and we have $15 million sitting in a fund balance. It's not the right thing to do. With no like legitimate plan in place, you know?
Another, not to throw another wrench, what's the expression? Something, throw another wrench in the, whatever it is in the ring.
Throw it.
We get, I don't know what, $700,000-800,000 from title grants.
Yes, we do.
That are through the federal government. The biggest is Title I, which pays for 4 reading specialists and aides.
Yes.
And that's coming from the Federal Department of Education that might not exist. We have no idea what's going to happen. Whether or not we're still going to get that money, my hope, my prayer is that they will just funnel that through the states and we'll still get it and not through the Department of Ed. But that is a big, giant question mark right now.
And that's for the 2025-2026 school year?
Yes.
It's a question
I mean,
mark,
for
yeah.
right now, it
We
is.
got the money for this year. We've already received it for 24, 25.
yes.
It's 25,
It's
26.
this budget that we're voting on that we
Yes,
don't know
yes.
about.
Correct.
I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. Both of you work. I sit at home and watch Fox News a lot. So, truth, there it is. They do not plan on, what my understanding is, Secretary of Education doesn't plan on cutting those type of programs for the next year to 2 years based on, they realize school districts plan on that money coming in.
That's comforting. If that's true, that's comforting.
I've also heard that those kind of things, special education, all those grants will be handled by
Continue.
other departments of the government. They're not going to just disappear. Just the bureaucracy will.
So hearing, you know, both sides of the coin, has anybody changed their mind? Are we closer to giving her the input? Or you still want to think about it over the week and let's talk about it next week? And give her something concrete, because we have to have that preliminary budget approved in May.
Yes, we do, 20th, May 20th, and the presentation will be on the 13th.
One thing we did not discuss is the access funding. We looked at that last year.
Yes, we did look at that
but we
last
did
year.
not- I haven't heard any mention this year about it.
I did talk about it. It was either January or February. I did talk about the access funding and gave us some scenarios. It does look like we're not going to receive as much funding as we had previously. We had our access coordinator did her due diligence, worked very, very hard, and it just looks like the numbers are not going to be there. So we're not going to be able to use as much as we were hoping to. But there's
But we don't have anything calculated into the budget.
No,
right
there
now.
is. There's actually $600,000 in the budget.
Oh, there is?
Yes.
Okay.
So you're comfortable with thinking about it this week and let's give her something concrete? And if you want to go ahead and send in something email to her in advance of that, that's probably not a bad thing.
Sure, absolutely.
All right.
And I can just gather all the data.
We can crunch some numbers to present to you too.
Yeah.
if we-
Sure.
Okay. Anything else before we go to the next item? All right, thank you, Mrs. Weaver, I appreciate that. This takes us to the public comment period. Is anyone seeking to make public comment? Each speaker will be given 3 minutes. The total time period for the comment period will be 30 minutes. Approach the podium, please state your name and your address.
My name is Chris Rotolo. I signed in outside there. Had to make some changes here due to that discussion. That was good to hear. First thing I had really short snippet was, is it possible to work out a deal with York Tech? I know you did a presentation last week or last month about it, to possibly bring students to Dover, as we have a state-known CTE program. I didn't hear this as part of the idea. I didn't know if that was something that we could do. It would save them. They don't need as much space for their CTE, and bring some kids back to us, or keep more kids here for our program that is well known. As far as the budget things, it was nice to hear some open, honest discussion about it. I keep going back to, even if we can find a way to salvage this coming year's budget between cuts the administration has been asked to look for and using the reserve funds, there's still that fiscal responsibility to replace the funds this board continues to take out. We alluded to the interest that's drawn off of it is very important, and that saves all of us money in the end, so we don't have that 5.6 that you're talking about. So without replacing these funds by this board, it will still be your responsibility if the next board, whether it's you or somebody else, has to raise the taxes. It still comes back to what happens in this budget. I just thought about some other parts, and I thought about my former life when I was coaching basketball and baseball and trying to develop young men. And one thing that I'd always started the year with is giving them a poem called The Builder. And it goes, I saw them tearing a building down, a team of men in my hometown. With a heave and a hoe and a yes, yes, yell, they swung a beam and a sidewall fell. And I said to the foreman, are these men skilled, like the ones you'd use if you had to build? And he laughed and he said, no, indeed. The most common labor is all I need. For I can destroy in a day or two what it takes a builder 10 years to do. So I thought to myself as I went on my way, which of these roles am I willing to play? Am I one who is tearing down as carelessly making my way around, or am I one who builds with care in order to make the world better because I was there? And I bring this up just because I want to make sure the decisions that are being made are really in the best interest of our students here at Dover. It concerns me when I hear board leadership or individuals speak about winning battles and wars because we have different opinions on policies. John C. Maxwell said it best, if you're at the top of a mountain alone, you're not a leader, you're a hiker. For the sake of the students and staff at Dover and my own children, I beg you please to lead and make decisions for everyone's interest. Start with the students and staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rotolo. Anyone else? All right, the public comment period is closed. Go on to our next agenda item, which is the announcement of executive sessions. We had an executive session on April 4th and April 5th to discuss legal issues. We had an executive session on April the 8th to discuss personnel issues, and we are planning an executive session for training on the 15th to discuss budget, helping the board understand budget. We have an outside vendor that's going to be coming providing that training. All right, agenda item 5.01 is the Educational Excellence Committee report. Chair recognizes Director Miller.
So we had a good meeting with our principals and assistant principals joining us and sharing information about the LIU. I know we spend a great deal of money for the LIU, and we were concerned with what's that money going for. So we learned that there are many classrooms in our district that are LIU classrooms. We also have students in other schools in LIU classrooms. We use speech, physical therapy, occupational therapy, and deaf and hearing impaired services from the LIU. We have students, as I said, that are out of the district. I believe the number was 32. but it all comes down to they're offering a service that our district needs and uses. Mid-year assessments, they shared lots of data from their study island, from Exact Path, and other sources, and they seem to be pretty confident that that's going to lead to great results on the PSSA and the Keystone. So we want to encourage them with what they're doing, and thank you. I know it's not easy, I know it's not fun, but hang in there. Cell phone usage, there seems to be a number I believe was given of 270 referrals. Teachers are being as consistent as they can be on cell phone usage during class, that it should not be used during class, and they're seeing it as well in the middle school. Not seeing a lot of cell phones being used except for in the hallway and going to the bathroom. So they do say that the freshmen coming in, they're going to see improvement from them because it's been through the middle school that they've been asked not to use the cell phone. So we're looking for a consistent improvement in engagement as they get used to not having the cell phone with them as much. We did ask for a list of purchased library books, and Dr. Hauk has promised that she will share that link with us, and I will share that with everyone else as well. So our next meeting is May 13th, and I look forward to meeting with everybody again. Thanks.
All right, thank you. Any questions for Director Miller?
Yes. When it comes to asked not to use their cell phones or told not to use their cell phones in our schools?
They are told not to use their cell
That's
phones.
what my understanding was in past meetings.
Did I say asked?
Yes,
Okay.
that's the reason I said that, because we got parents who will call regarding those issues. I thought you told me they were not allowed to. I can hear that phone ringing tomorrow.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, Chair recognizes Director Meese for the Facilities Safety Report.
All right, thank you. First topic is the Intermediate Avenue paving. I'm going a little bit out of order from my agenda, but I want to make sure we talk about this one first because this is something we have to do. We agreed to do this in 2021. Dover agreed to do the work. We're at the point where the township's frustrated with us because the work hasn't been done, and we need to perform our side of the street paving in order for them to perform their side of the street paving. So we want to do ours this summer. They can do their side next summer. And after we're done with doing our portion of the work, they will adopt the road and then thus take care of the road and plow the road. So it's to our benefit not only to get it done, but we also have to do it, from my understanding, because we agreed to do it in 2021. Okay, how much it's going to cost. So we only had one company reply to the RFP, and that's York Excavating Company. The bid is $26,495. And if you'll recall, it was briefly mentioned in a previous meeting that Dover Highlands is going to contribute $10,000. So we have to, out of our pocket, pay $16,495 to get the work done. I'd like to put this on the agenda next week and have the board vote on it and approve it next week. Again, because we have to, really, is what it boils down to. Do we have any questions on that?
Quick question in regards to Dover Highlands. Do they have some type of document with us, a contract or something signed to state that it was an agreed upon?
That's a great question, and I did not
just
ask
for
that
records.
question. I know that Tom, I want to yeah, if you can come up here, Mr. Fluke. Originally, Dover Highlands only committed to 6,000, but Mr. Fluke talked him into 10,000, so that was helpful. But
yeah, there is an agreement that was signed back in 2021 of January between the school district, the township, and Dover Highlands that obligates us to take care of this. So yes.
And
It is
then the 10,000 part, where do you have that documented?
That was within the meeting over at the township. We can get that from their attorney. That was done between Mr. Pratt and their attorney with Dover Highlands. So we can get the documentation from that. He has that.
Okay,
Yep.
there's-
Absolutely. Yep.
I don't know if that's the one thing that you were thinking of.
It might have
earlier,
been.
but-
It might have been, but yeah, I can get that from Mr. Pratt. No
Okay,
problem.
awesome.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thanks.
If you could just stay up here.
Sure.
Okay. All right, that's a good question. Any other questions in regards to that?
Yeah, the agreement you're talking about, when was that signed?
2021.
2021.
Yeah,
So-
January 11th, I believe, 2021.
So the board in 2021 approved that agreement?
Yes.
So,
And I do have that documentation if you'd like to see it too.
okay.
Yep.
All right. That seems cut and dry.
Yeah.
Yep. The window is very small because we have to do that paving and not disrupt school. That would be a horrible mess for transportation if they were doing that during the school year.
Yeah, so it's pretty urgent to get it on the agenda next
Yes,
week.
absolutely.
And get it
Yep.
approved.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah.
So when you have half of a road paved
Mhm.
for a whole year sitting that way, is there any concern that there might be an issue with that dividing?
My major concern is fulfilling our obligation. So
Okay.
that's something the township will have to take into account.
So we get it done, if there's a problem, they deal with it?
They are scheduled, from what I understand, next summer, not this summer, next summer, to pave the half of the road that goes from Canal up to that point, which is just about where the entrance is to the baseball field. But they're scheduled to do that next summer. So our section is the section that's kind of by the stormwater drain that's right there. Once we do that, it's in the agreement that then they'll adopt it.
So when you say half the road, I was picturing from the yellow line to the side. She knows where I'm going. So it's not half down the middle.
It is half down the middle, absolutely. It is half right down the middle.
Is it vertical or horizontal down the middle?
If you went down the yellow line of a road, it is down the yellow line. You are 100% correct.
Oh,
Yeah, there's a drainage issue there with the stormwater runoff and the way the road is, and we received all the specifications, what needs to fix it from the township, and that was in the RFP.
So who's paving up from Canal up
That's-
to?
The township.
Okay.
We're just doing that section that is in our agreement, that we have the obligation for. Yep.
All right.
Would it be possible to just do both sides at one time? We can give them the money now and then they can just pave it all at one time. Seems like that would happen so much easier.
You are correct. We put a lot of options down. I believe that was one of them, and they did not want to do that.
Well,
They wanted us to take care of our obligation, I believe, first.
and I believe that it's not in the township's budget until next year.
That is correct, yep.
Yeah, but if we paid them now and just had the paving all done at one time, would that not be a lot less disruption and potential? You're talking about the ridge, is what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's,
Could- you
How
could-
it'll break. I mean, it could be damaged right there with all kinds
Down
of
at the
traffic.
bottom of the hill, you could end up having puddling of water during freezing conditions. That could be a problem too. And it seems it'd be more difficult to plow in snow as well.
it could be. Whatever the township has slated, I mean, they do. But, I mean, they have that budgeted for next summer, but they will not adopt that. And our obligation is going on 3 years now from 2021. So they would like us to finish it.
So since they don't have the money, if we would have done it in 2021, would we still be sitting here with the other side of the road probably not paved?
Yes, I
3
would say.
years of that.
I would say that was, yes, correct. Because they didn't have it budgeted. So if the township didn't have it budgeted to do it, they wouldn't have done it. I think that's a fair assessment, yes.
Something about that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because you're gonna pay setup costs for them to come back.
Right. Seems like it'd be cheaper overall. We could just pay.
One-time arrival.
Yeah,
Probably better quality too, if it's all one piece.
yeah. That makes sense to me.
Yeah, see if they will take a payment for our portion.
I'm going to say from the negotiations or the meetings we have, they will not. They just want this finished. Yeah, Mr. Pratt actually sat in one of the meetings with us, and they want it done.
But it's not finished until they do their half.
I mean, at some point, the road is going to be theirs?
As soon as we do this, they will adopt it.
And-
So whether that other half is repaved or not, they are going to adopt it. So then it is theirs. I think the adoption would have to take place of that section before they can repave it. That would be my assumption.
So if we pave it and it breaks, that's their problem.
It is the township, yes, and that is actually in the RFP too, that it has to be met to meet the adoption standards and specifications per the township. Yep.
So the good part about this is Solicitor Pratt will be here next, so if it goes on the agenda, he can give us whatever relevant information, we can vote it up or down at that time. It just seems very odd to me. Pave one half of a road and then possibly 4 years later pave the other half. That was probably the original plan, I'm assuming.
I don't know what the original plan was. Yeah, I'm not certain on that. Yeah,
Interesting.
it does seem odd.
Interesting. Okay.
So once the road's paved, who takes care of painting all the lines and things?
The township, once they adopt it, yep. Once we meet our obligation, it is in the agreement that then they'll adopt the road, and then that would be the township's.
Including crosswalks?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Exactly what I was thinking. Director McKinney? I mean, they're painting. It'd be nice to roll that in somehow.
Well, the other thing is if we put in the crosswalk this year, since it's going the length of the road, it's going to have to be redone next year. Of course, that will be on the township, but.
I think once it's there, if my understanding is correct, once something is there, then that would be theirs to replace them. So if they would disturb it or mess it up, then it's their obligation to take care of it, not ours. Even though, because I think whatever is there, then they have to, once they go through and repave it, that would be their responsibility then. Just as they were saying, if we make an improvement to something, then it is our responsibility.
Okay. So we'll probably get more information on this during the course of the week. Is there any objection to putting this on the agenda for next week?
No
And you still want to put it on the agenda for next week?
Yes.
Okay. Any objection to doing that? Okay.
Is there any questions that I need to get answers to, or Mr. Fluke needs to get answers to? Like, I want to be clear about,
I think it might be a good.
like, I don't want to put it on the agenda and then it gets voted down. Like, so any questions that I can bring,
If you would like the agreement, a copy agreement, I can provide that to everyone. I have that, so that's no problem. And then if there's any other stuff that Mr. Pratt has, that would probably be on the attorney/solicitor side of it, he can probably provide that to you too.
Okay.
Taking notes, thank you.
Because he was working with the Dover Highlands attorney.
Right. I guess the only other question, it's just an interest item for me, is would they be willing to take money this year and then do the entire paving next year? I mean,
I think it's probably more of a logistical issue for them as far as, they have procedures just like we do. And to Mr. Fluke's point, they probably have to adopt it first. So it's probably just like a systematized thing. And us as like the developer of the property, we have to finish what was part of our development contract, and we didn't do that yet. So they want us to fulfill the remaining part of our contract that we had with them, and then they will then do their work.
Yeah, it might be a catch-22 for them.
Yeah, it might be.
Okay. All right. So I think the moving forward on this side, and then we'll go back to the rest of your report, we can put this on the agenda for next week, get a couple questions. I don't expect it to fail. And then we'll have that dispensed. And
Unless something really jumps out, but
yeah. Okay, that sounds good.
But you guys all had great questions, so I appreciate the questions.
Thank you, Director Whitmer, for asking that question. I had not envisioned at all that it would be down the center.
I do have concerns that something might, I feel like we need to cover ourselves at this, well, there's some questions I think can be asked. I don't know those questions right now, they're not coming to me, but something along the lines of, after this is complete, we have no more obligation to fix any, damage,
Well, once they adopt it,
Yeah,
it's their road.
Yeah, once they adopt it, sirs, and the agreement says once the work is complete, they will adopt it.
Yeah.
So then once they adopt it, it is theirs.
Now, as far as crosswalks go, in the township's mind, that might not be a necessary code or, for them to do. So they might be, well, that's on you guys. That's not something that we have to do. So if you want to make that type of improvement, that's on you. And that maybe not be why they want to take on the crosswalk obligation, even though it's their road. if they're not contractually obligated to do it for any reason.
Okay.
Okay.
So we'll, yeah. So
Let me stay here.
I think we're good on that one. You gonna
Okay,
hang out?
we're
I'm just gonna hang out here. Yep, I'm good.
Okay, next, I don't have that many. There's only really 3, so don't feel like there's like a ton here. Okay, so Intermediate Avenue. Okay, the next most important thing is the facility study. So we would like to put on the agenda next week to vote on awarding the facilities study contract. And we discussed, I want to thank Mrs. Weaver and Mr. Fluke for all of the information that they gave us. They gave us a summary of the facilities, of the companies that presented information. There were 7 total, and we reviewed 4 of the 7, because the 4 least expensive ones. And it worked out kind of nice because the least expensive company is EI Associates. And they actually worked with us before, Director, help me out, North Salem and Libe.
Yes.
They did work before for us. And also Mrs. Weaver had worked with them in the past at Dallastown. And there were no complaints at that time from us or Dallastown. And they came in at the best price. So it kind of, I think, works out really well. So the committee is recommending that we put on the agenda next week to vote for EI, to approve EI Associates to do our facility study. If that approval goes through, then Mr. Fluke will reach out to them to get a timeline, project start, project duration.
Yep, absolutely.
And make sure that all the expectations are set on what we.
Yep, and they should all be in the RFP. I think it was very specific on what we needed, so that
Yes,
should be
it
self-explanatory.
was, yeah.
Yep.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yeah.
What was their role at North Salem?
They were the engineering firm on record. So they did
For the whole building?
For North Salem and Libe, yep.
As I sit here, I recall all of the interesting things we saw about where they put things. I know that's been a long time, like
Right.
95, 98, I can't remember what year,
Yep.
but I mean,
Yep.
we don't have concerns about that.
I don't, you'll get that in any project where you get things in strange places, and I think some of you that took the tour with me, I showed you some of those strange places. But overall, those 2 buildings have done really well. Live, being as old as it is, has aged very well, and that says a lot for the firm that was there, and so has North Salem. It's just they're at the point now where it's time to talk about kind of the renovations. I would, yeah.
And the cost for that is $5,000. 100% of the cost would be credited back if they were hired for the project identified in the study, which is good information to know. As I pointed out, there's previous experience they have with the Dover Area School District. They completed facility studies for over 450 districts, which I think is a great point. They obviously have a lot of experience doing facility studies, over 450 districts. So they can probably do it with their eyes closed at this point. And Mr. Fluke didn't find any legal issues to note in the last 10 years. Whereas one of the other firms he did. So that's good information to have.
Yeah, Mrs. Weaver actually pulled that information.
Oh, Mrs.
Yeah,
Weaver.
Yes.
Thank
She
you.
she did the research
Sorry.
on that, not me.
Awesome. Any other questions about that?
Any objection to putting that on the agenda for next week? That's what you're requesting?
Yes, on the agenda for next week to get that rolling.
Okay.
We discussed some short and long-term goals that Mr. Fluke had a lot of great points to make, mostly was middle school. Everything that he pointed out will be on that facility study, and they will bring back to us the degree of which those need addressed, urgency, I guess. So we look forward to seeing that information. Okay. We did quickly discuss sponsorships, and Mrs. Weaver gave us a couple of examples of sponsorships that other school districts do to increase revenue, because I know Director Whitmer had asked about that, so we kind of started to delve into that a little bit. We didn't get too far into the weeds, but just kind of started the conversation on that. So there'll be more to come with that. And lastly, I wanted to talk about the crosswalks. I'm just going to throw it out there. The cost for the 3 crosswalks is going to be $2,356 to do the 3 crosswalks. We only got 1 bid from DE Gemmel to do that. We don't need a permit. We don't need any engineering. It's just overlaying what was there 30 years ago and has been worn down. We do still have on our minds the signals and the bigger project, which is around $30,000, but we want to source grant funding for that. So Director Connolly and Director Kindig and I went and talked to Senator Kiefer, who's going to help us with that to try to fund that larger project next year. But I was thinking that this would be a good intermediary thing. Director Hogan, Director Emig, I don't know like how you guys want to speak to that, but I thought that this would be a step in the right direction. I know it's $2,356, so we would have to approve using that money from the cap reserve fund maybe and not the general fund balance. That's my opinion. I don't know where Director Emig stands now that he knows where the money would be coming from and where Director Hogan stands. Do you want to give
It's
your
coming
opinion?
from capital reserve, so.
So you think it's a good move for us to do the crosswalks?
Well, as I stated before, years ago, kids would walk from across the square the whole way to the intermediate school with no problem. York High students walk the whole block to the city to York High. I have a problem with this, even though it comes out of capital reserve, but I'm still having a concern when you had all kids walk before to the Dover schools, and now you want to put crosswalks in. People are not going to obey by the speed limit. I see it every morning.
Yeah.
They're flying through there, and it's supposed to be 25 miles an hour, and they're going 40, 45. So.
Yeah, I understand. I get your point. Director Hogan, do you have anything to
I would
add?
rather have a safety feature for only $2,000 and give kids direction on where they should be crossing the street at. And also cars, the advance notice that this could be a place where someone's crossing and slow down. 2,000 isn't a whole lot for that. I think the schools have updated their standards though, even like their city schools probably have crosswalks now. Maybe they didn't back in the day, but everybody's concerned about safety.
And that's kind of where I sit with it too. It's also directional for the kids. So, you know, they're drawn to cross the street at that particular location too, might be helpful, so.
Dan, I don't think it has as much to do with the ability of the kids to walk the distance as this is focused towards the drivers. This is something for the drivers to see and
Maybe, yeah.
hopefully abide by.
Yeah,
But
yeah. So we can put it on the agenda and vote on it and see how it goes. Does anybody have any other questions about it?
Any objection to putting on the agenda for next week to vote on it?
No objection.
Okay, no objection. Director Meese, if you'll work with Dr. Hauk and her staff to make sure the language on there is what you want it to be.
Absolutely, yeah.
We'll take that up as business at our next meeting.
Okay, great. Okay, and then our next meeting is May 13th upstairs. Any other questions?
Yes.
Yes.
You previously told us about a Ford F-450 that you guys were putting out to.
That,
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the question.
Ford F-450 that you were putting out to pasture.
Yes.
Oh, yeah, okay.
That's still happening?
Yes, it is on municipal bid right now. Yes.
Okay. How is that vehicle intended to be replaced?
It has already been replaced.
That's what I was afraid of. If you remember during our discussion, folks, you board members, about the, pass those around. Give me one. Our discussion about the Ford F-350. I asked about the idea of subcontracting snow removal out. During February of '24, we paid $2,706.50 for snow removal. I'd like to know about this. I know it went to DM Petro. I can read that. Who did, for how long? You know what I'm saying.
What was the date on it?
The exact date, it was just February of 2024.
And what was it for?
Snow removal.
Okay. We have done everything in-house this current year. We have not outsourced anything when it comes to snow removal. They used to, in the past, do the high school and the middle school. We now do that in-house. We have half the staff starts at the high school, half the staff starts at the middle school, and after that, they go to the elementary schools and remove snow from there.
Is it in your contract that they can't be outsourced?
I don't know anything about the contract. I'm not HR.
That HR lady told us point blank, it is in their contract. Am I correct, Dr. Howe? You're shaking your head too.
I'm shaking my head because I remember her saying that.
Yes.
Yes. Because basically what you're doing is you're taking work away from somebody who's in the collective bargaining agreement.
The support staff contract says something about before we subcontract, we will negotiate with the union. Because
we get into such things in the contract is the idea, if there's a snowstorm, if there is a, extenuating circumstances, i.e. the governor declares an emergency, you get into that kind of stuff, you can bring other people in, is what I'm getting at. Because I think we're buying trucks that we really don't need, is what it amounts to.
Oh, I understand. I'm only
voted
addressing your
against it.
question on the support staff contract.
Yeah, I know.
And Director Miller and I are currently with Solicitor Pratt are meeting with them during negotiations. And when that comment got made a year ago or so, I went in there to look at that because I thought, that can't be right. Well, it says we will sit down and negotiate with them if we're going to subcontract. Now, what the practice of the parties has been, I can't speak to that.
Yeah, because it also has to cover what we are dealing with as far as being subcontracting in their negotiations.
Just for my clarity, this is a report from February of March 2024 of a February expense of 2024, right?
Yeah,
I would assume so.
So, yeah, because originally, until I read it, I thought you were talking about this year. So you're talking about, we did this last year.
Yeah, and that's when we discussed that truck last fall.
Right.
The truck just arrived about 2 months ago. So this snowfall year, we'll call it, we plowed snow at every building. So if that was in practice before and it happened before, I don't know what to say about that, but I can tell you this year, we plowed snow at every building in-house. And I've been in this for about almost 20 years now, and you have to have trucks to plow snow. I've sat in plow trucks for 12 plus hours a day plowing snow. It's not easy, but you have to do it. And if you don't plow with storms, as I said here before, you will get behind and you will pay thousands and thousands and thousands and tens of thousands of dollars to bring in heavy equipment from the quarry or wherever you can get it from, and you probably won't get it anyway because everybody else will already have it. And then you're stuck, and you can't do anything.
I understand your argument.
Well, I've lived it. I've done it for 20 years. I've lived it firsthand.
So have I.
You sat in a plow truck for 12 hours.
No, for 18
Okay.
in a federal prison.
And you sat in a plow truck for 12 hours.
No, 18
Okay.
hours.
Well, I've lived this life for 20 years. I can tell you, you have to have trucks in a school district to plow snow, to move mowers, to
not
move
my concern.
items.
My concern
You
is
have to
we're
have,
buying more
it
trucks
seems
than
like it is your
You
concern.
can put a blade on a 450 rather than just a
You can't put a blade on a truck that has a boom, aerial boom bucket truck lift on it. It doesn't work.
Okay, I'd like to see if we can bring down the temperature just a little bit. And
Because I think we're buying bigger trucks. A Ford F-350 isn't what this district needed.
It's exactly what needs to plow snow, and I've lived it for 20 years.
Well, just as a reminder, that went before the whole board. I don't know how each individual member voted, but I remember that the motion passed.
I'm not quite sure why we're bringing it up again.
So
I'll tell you why we're bringing it up again, because this was brought to me.
That was from 2024.
I understand that, but
Okay.
what I was told in this meeting was the fact that we didn't subcontract out.
We didn't last year. That was a truthful statement, and I said it right here. We didn't subcontract anything out last year. We plowed snow in-house for this entire district last year. Maybe we should, you know, I don't understand.
Mr. Fluke,
what the
please
thing is.
stop arguing with me.
I'm not arguing, I'm stating my point.
All right. So I think we hear Director Wolverton's part. I don't want this to get personal between the two of you. You presented factual information, and you have a question about this. So I think we can probably look into that through the business office. And if there's any, questions about that, or if there's a contractual violation or anything like that, I think we can definitely look into it.
Well, and I think as part of the facility study, I mean, I know it doesn't go into vehicles or anything, but maybe after the facility study, we can add to our, 5-10 year plan,
Right.
like what it looks like for vehicles with
I
our
can-
vans and
yep.
all that stuff too. So, we'll have that as well.
And I can tell you before I got here, nobody did anything with the district's fleet. Nothing. We couldn't tell what money we were spending on each vehicle, and I went back to 2016 to see what we were spending on these vehicles for maintenance, because it was never done before.
Yeah.
And I'd have went
All
back
that
further,
stacking.
but everything was already purged at that point from 2016 when I first got here. That's as far back as I could go. It doesn't make any sense to spend money on vehicles that aren't worth the money.
But then we'll be able to better understand, in the next 5 years, we're gonna have to replace this, and this.
Exactly, yep.
And we can feel better about making that decision when the time comes,
Okay, are you okay with us looking into this
Yeah,
in the
we're gonna
business
look into
office? Okay. Do you want to do that yourself?
No.
Okay. All right, do you have the issue, and we can get some follow-up for the board? Okay. All right, well, I appreciate that. Any other questions for Mr. Fluke? Well, I think I should hand it back to you. It's your committee report.
I was just gonna ask Director Hogan or Director Emig if they had anything else to share in that.
Nope. You're doing a good job.
Why, thank you.
Yeah. Good to see
Thank you,
these.
Mr. Fluke.
Thank
Sorry
you.
I kept you up there.
No worries.
Thank you, Mr. Fluke. And we got a lot of stuff going on, so I appreciate you
Of course.
keeping all that stuff
Yeah,
moving
of course.
forward. So we
Yeah,
got,
it is
so as a result of tonight, looks like we got 3 motions that are going to be coming to us next week, right?
Correct.
All right, very good. Any questions for Director Meese before we go to the next report? All right, the next agenda item is agenda item 5.03, the Resource Oversight Committee. Director McKinney is recognized.
Yep, the Resource Oversight Committee is a fancy way to say budget and human resources for the public. We had sort of an unstructured meeting. We just wanted to mainly talk about the goals and the future focus of the committee. We did, however, go over a few items. We talked about possible revenue, alternative revenue streams in the future. Mrs. Weaver had done a lot of homework and a lot of reaching out about cell towers. So she contacted 5 school districts to find out how much they would be able to profit off of a cell tower. It ranged from $13,000 to $27,000 per tower. That's the good news. Most of them were approached by carriers, and we were not, because we have pretty good cell phone coverage around Dover. She reached out to the 3 big tower installers and didn't really get any answers. So the likelihood of us going that route, if we haven't been approached by the carriers, is probably unlikely. There's possibly, Director Kindig had brought up an area, possibly a dead spot over by Libe, that 2 or 3 years ago they were looking to put a tower up there, but they may have already covered that. We talked about probably some of the same sponsorships that the facilities department did. Putting logos on items, getting sponsorships, corporate sponsorships on things. Director Wolverton had told us about Kennerdale. They had an offer from Coca-Cola to build a field house there, upgrade their sports facilities. Their board voted it down, but maybe that's something we could start reaching out for, because our stadium could use a little love. So maybe we can find some ways to pay for it that way. There was a kitchen grant that was applied for and approved, correct, Mrs. Weaver?
Yes.
For coolers, ovens, some major kitchen equipment. So that has been approved. That's good news. Mrs. Weaver gave us some interesting statistics that kind of help paint the picture of our budget. In York County, the commercial industrial percentage average is 10%. Dover's is 7%. So we have less business to bring in taxation. Residential, York County average is 67%. Dover's is 79%. So we're very heavy on residential and very low in business. So that does affect our budget and our taxation. One of our main goals is to, going forward, develop a long-term plan for revenue to see how many homes are coming in, how many taxpayers, do studies in that regard to try to project our revenue going forward. We also discussed the status of the Earned Income Tax Commission. They'll be meeting tomorrow, is that correct, Director Kindig?
Yes.
That's correct. So we'll hopefully by next week have an update on that. Other than that, we just brainstormed about what we want to use that committee for going forward.
Very good. Any questions for Director McKinney? Okay, all right. That takes us to the next agenda item. Section 6 is discussion of action items.
Mr. Conley, based on the fact that most of the staff is going to leave here in a few minutes, and before we get down through section 6, I'd like to address two issues that I wanted to address last planning meeting while the administrators were here, if I may. I know it's out of realm. It's out of.
Is it on the agenda?
It is not, but I feel it needs to be because they're going to walk out of here at 9 o'clock like they did last week, or last month.
Okay, so if we're going to add something to the agenda, we'll need board concurrence to do that. Is there any objection to adding 2 items to the agenda at this point?
I'd like to add them to the end if we want to add them, but he says there's an urgency, so I don't know.
Could you tell us what they're in?
They're attaboys.
Okay. You want to commend some staff?
Correct.
Okay.
He wants to commend some of the
Yeah,
staff.
I'm all for that.
Okay.
Yeah. Any objection?
What happened
to
is
doing
last
that?
month,
Okay.
we got
Go
up to
ahead.
the point where they walked out at 9 o'clock. We get to the board members, our comments, they're gone. I'd like to commend Mrs. Evans and Dr. Houck for a situation that occurred last month over at the middle school. It was handled expeditiously. And it dealt with some young ladies, that type of thing on a Monday. By Wednesday, I was talking to Dr. Houck at 8 o'clock in the morning in her office. And by Friday, it was resolved. And I want to say I really appreciate the timeliness of that. And Mrs. Evans dealing with the parents at the middle school. Couldn't have asked for more. Another thing I'd like to do is Mrs. Miller and I had a meeting with Mrs. Fasik over at the high school over the IDIC committee that we belong to. During that meeting, Mrs. Fasik brought up the Hall Pass app that she put on the computers for the kids, the tablets. She said about how things had gotten reduced in regards to the violence. She can understand knows where the kids are at. It's really easy to track them much better, yakety yak. And she explained how she was in a meeting with a principal from another school district. While the principal from the other school district was talking about an assault, Mrs. Fasik was explaining to her, my vice principal is calling parents and telling them, your son is wearing a hat in an area he's not supposed to be, that type of thing. It just so happened, I want the board members to know that I was in a meeting with several parents. And out of the clear blue, one of the mothers turned this on me and she said, that is exactly what I want to know. I want to know that my kids are in a safer environment, someplace where things are being managed in a proper manner. And I really appreciate knowing that. And I commend Mrs. Fasik for the idea of putting that on her, on the tablets in the school and as a hall monitor, if you will, basically an ankle bracelet, as I would call it. She took $7,000 out of her budget, if you recall, to do that. I'd like to recommend for this board that we at least give her $1,000 a year back into that budget, although we were under a money squeeze, as we all know, to be able to continue to do the things that she needs to do in that high school. And that's all I've got to say. But I wanted you guys to know that before you walked out.
All right, thank you, Director Wolverton. All right, let's go to the next agenda item, discussion items. Agenda item 6.01, the 2025-2028 Special Education Plan. Dr. Houck, you want to speak to this?
This is a plan that the Special Education Department has to submit to the state. I am going to bring Mrs. Snyder up if you have any questions about this particular plan.
So this was what I presented last planning meeting. It's the mandatory 3-year plan, and it covers some professional development based on targeted things that we need to work on as a district, as well as the classrooms that we have within our district and outside of our district. So I put together the PowerPoint last month that we reviewed together.
So this is what we have here. It's quite lengthy, but is the entire plan?
It is.
That was submitted to PDE?
It will be submitted once it's voted upon.
Once, okay.
And then PDE would have to approve it.
Okay. All right, so this will be on the agenda for action next week to approve the plan. Any questions for Mrs. Snyder?
I can't imagine how much work went into this, especially your first, just coming on board.
It's been an adventure this year.
Congratulations.
Because next year I'll get to do cyclical monitoring. So within, a full year, it's, a special ed. Basically, they used to call it a special ed audit, but we call it a cyclical monitoring now. So I got to write the special ed plan. I get to do cyclical monitoring.
Yeah.
I get to do all the big things within 1 year.
Trial by fire.
I like to call it an adventure instead.
Yeah.
And you do learn a lot by going through this process. So.
You do. So.
And for members of the public, it's very tiny print and it's 91 pages long.
Yeah.
So.
Yes.
I didn't wear glasses until I came here.
I wish I could say that, but I definitely need them for this report, no doubt about it. Any questions or discussion?
I had asked a question of Dr. Houck via email earlier this week about the indicator numbers. What exactly does that mean?
So it depends on which indicator, but there are things that the state tells us that we need to focus on based on what we have not met in comparison to the state. So for example, one of them is related to testing data, and it is us not for students in special education, we're not closing the gap as quickly in comparison to the state. So it's in comparison to the state averages.
So the indicators are things that the state looks at, and they have an expectation of schools that they meet those indicators. And so we passed with flying colors on almost all of them, but there were a couple that the state said, you didn't quite meet that expectation, so we need you to develop a plan to meet that expectation.
And part of the plan is professional development, and the professional development, a lot of ours comes from our wonderful staff that we have here, that we have lots of in-house opportunities that we can provide, along with the IU that provides at no cost, and Patton. So we have things that can look at teaching explicit instruction to our students to help close those gaps, for example, in the example I gave for the indicator. Any other questions?
The number of students we have in out-of-district placements, we're working to reduce that number, I recall.
We work every year to try to reduce them. And historically, they've reduced each year. And right now, the biggest population that I kind of presented on a little bit earlier is our students that have emotional support as the need that they need to fulfill. And it's simply right now, we're running out of seats in our own programs, but our programs continue to expand. So yes, we look to bring as many students as we can back each year.
So the chart that's on, and I know you don't have the presentation in front of you, but there's a chart of all the placements that are there. Are these numbers current numbers or
Yeah, they were when we, yeah.
as
yes.
of the day that you submitted it?
Correct,
Okay.
correct.
All right, any other questions? Well, thank you, Mrs. Snyder. Appreciate it
course.
very much. Next agenda item is, scroll back up, 6.02, the flexible instruction days application. This is another small print document with lots of rules. I'll turn it over to Dr. Hauk to explain.
So the flexible instructional days are the remote learning days. I don't know that we used any of them because we have a certain number of hours. We have to have 990 hours of instruction at the elementary level, 900 at the secondary level, or might be backwards, can't remember. So if we have a snow and school's closed, we can use what we call a FID in order to provide remote instruction. The state allows us to have 5 of those. Doesn't mean we have to use them. The rule that we have and what's included in this plan is that if we know the storm is coming ahead of time and we can prepare the students, making sure they know what they're supposed to do and have their devices and have their paperwork, we will use a remote learning day or a FIT day. It's those events where we didn't know it was coming. I know we've had floods before or some sort of road issues or power outages or something like that. That's when we would call it a snow day or and use one of our makeup days. So this just allows us to use those days if and when we need them.
So what's the distinction between a remote learning day and a FID?
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that because that's a big topic of discussion right now. The FID days are actually kind of becoming obsolete. So some schools are not even applying for them because they just call them remote learning days. I went ahead and applied for them just because at least then we'll have them. But for the most part, as long as we hit those 990 hours of instruction, I could call a remote learning day and it would not have an impact on us.
This year, I don't think we used any snow days, did we?
No, we did not.
And we used remote.
We used remote learning. Now, we only had 2 snow days built into our calendar, one in October, and then one that's coming up here in April. I believe it's Easter Monday, I believe. And so we used remote learning days instead of those days. The rest are going to have to be tacked on to the end of the year.
Any questions for Dr. Howe?
So I wasn't sure, it says students will be given 3 days after the FID to complete work. And then another spot it says.
I think we didn't catch that. We fixed that earlier today. They have to have it done by the next day.
Everybody, no matter what grade level.
Correct.
Okay.
So if you saw that, we'll have to fix that before we submit it.
Sure. And then and maybe this was something else. It said, I don't know what page it is. Page 4 of 18. It says false. Our public school entity will rely entirely upon the primary plan. That's under.
Can you give me that page number again, please?
I think it's page 4 at the top where it's counting. It says page 4. It says number 4, question number 4, what procedure will identify student participation during a flexible instructional day? And then there's the bullets, and then there's a paragraph, and then it starts out saying false.
Yeah, that is a check that we had to check, and when you printed it out, we couldn't take that word out. It just wouldn't come out.
So it's just false.
You just have to ignore that. Yeah.
Okay.
Mrs. Allman and I both tried to have this print without that word, and it wouldn't. Okay. So, sorry, we'll just have to ignore it.
Didn't understand. Okay.
Any other questions?
And so elementary does the Google Meet just once in the morning for their morning meeting. And
Yes.
nobody else does a Google Meet, middle school and high school don't?
No, middle school and high school do every single period.
Every single period they're
Yes,
meeting with
for the first
class,
30
that
minutes,
time.
at least 30 minutes. At the high school, I believe it's the first half of each period.
So that's on flexible instruction.
That's both. We have the same plan, whether it's a remote learning day or a flexible instruction day. We follow the exact same plan.
So is flexible instruction a component of, or, I'm sorry, the remote learning day, is it a component of flexible instruction or the other way around?
So it used to be where you had to apply for these FID days in order to be able to use them. So the rules have changed a little bit recently, where now you can call it a remote learning day. And you can have an unlimited number of remote learning days because they consider it to be an instructional day. It changed largely after COVID, when schools all kind of figured out a way to create flexible instruction, to create remote learning. Prior to COVID, there were some schools that just weren't able to do it. So now, again, some schools are not even applying for FID days and they're just going to call them all remote learning. This to me is a security blanket, sort of, where in case that changes, I at least know I have those 5 guaranteed FID days.
I remember having the discussion back in the fall that there was quite a few people saying that remote learning just does not work. What's our position on that now?
So my position on that has been that the remote learning days in the middle of the year are much more productive than June 5th. Because that's what we have in our calendar. We did not build in enough snow days in the middle of the school year. So if we used more than April, the one coming up on Monday was the only one that we could have used. Everything else is going to be tacked on to June 4th, June 5th, June 6th. So I think all of my teachers would agree that doing remote learning in February is better than keeping the kids in school on June 6th.
So what's the point in having snow days anymore? We don't really need snow.
Actually, some schools are not even doing them because they have enough hours. So they're not even making them up. I don't particularly like that. I think it sends a message that instruction's not important. So I like to see them made up or use a remote learning day.
Any other questions?
Well, Director Conley beat me to it. This last year, it seemed like we had a fair amount of remote learning days. And I would request that I'd like to see how many we actually had. We did have a lengthy discussion 6 months or so ago on remote learning days. And my impression was the majority of the board is not in favor of these remote learning days. We don't think they're all that valuable. So hopefully, I'd like to see how many we had this year. And for me, when we look at the school calendar next year, I'd like to see us build more snow days in to avoid these remote learning days.
We had 3 this year. That's how many we used this year, 3 remote learning days.
Those were all on snow days.
They were snow days. The calendar has already been set for 25, 26. I would have to convene the committee again to add more snow days, which we could do if the majority of the board tells me that that's something they want me to do.
I don't want you to do it.
I'm not questioning your number, although I am questioning your number because we went through a period of 2 or 3 weeks where you were sending out email after email after email that the roads are going to be icy, the roads are going to be this, the roads are going to be that, and it just seemed like we were using a lot of remote learning.
We had a lot of delays.
Yeah,
we
there were
had a lot of
delays.
2-hour delays, but we had 3 remote learning days. So when I told you about the roads, a lot of those, you're right, I did send a lot of those out, and a lot of those ended up being 2-hour delays.
Okay.
Any other questions or discussion about this? All right, let's go to next agenda item. Agenda item 6.03, policy second reading. Policies 103, discrimination and harassment affecting students. Policy 104, discrimination, harassment affecting staff. And then policy 815.1, use of generative artificial intelligence in education. So the floor is open for discussion. Any questions? Okay.
I have one question. When I was thinking about the use of AI today in schools, I mean, how prepared are you hearing that other schools are at this time to even have a policy, implement it, and move forward? Do they feel like they're just kind of throwing stuff out the wall to see if it's like, are they going to follow protocol? Like, how's this getting pushed out?
Yeah, I think schools are very prepared because this is not something that's brand new. We knew this was coming. The only caveat to that is it changes very quickly. So we are prepared for what we know exists. Teachers are already using it. Students are already using it. The challenge that we have is not in being prepared. The challenge that we have is staying on top of it. So this has been a topic of conversation among schools for quite a while now. So I feel like most of us are prepared for this.
I had some editorial comments on it that it seems to interchangeably use the board directs, or the district directs, or the district prohibits, uses some language like that. I think it needs to be rewritten so that these statements are in parallel. So it's either the board directing to do it, because the district's really not directing the policy here. I think it should be written to where every statement where it says the district directs, it would be changed to, sorry, the board directs. The other thing is, I had a question, and I didn't get it in time in order for them to address it today, but the question about, are we prepared? Towards the end of that, policy 815, was it 815.1? The assurances that are in the AI use, and I think it was in the operations, establishing protocols to verify the accuracy and reliability of the output. So how would we do those things? There's also another use in here as far as basically policing the use to make sure there's no improper use. For example, the student punching in their assignment into AI and then getting it back. I could pull out my phone and look at my exact questions because they were a little bit better phrased than that. But how are we prepared to deal with that, basically snooping, to find, where people are cheating using AI?
Okay, I think there's two different questions I think I'm hearing.
Yeah, right.
One is how do we do vet all the applications that we use as a district that are like downloaded or available on the iPads. So we vet them to make sure that they are both FERPA and COPA compliant. And they will tell us, the vendors will tell us whether or not they've gotten that compliance. So if they've gotten that compliance, then we have an assurance that they are not collecting or sharing information that they shouldn't be. So can I prevent a student from using AI that isn't FERPA or COPA compliant? Well, no, I can't, but it's not gonna be on their device as an app or a software. We vet all of that. The challenge, of course, that we have, just like I stated before, is staying on top of it. In terms of students, that's an ongoing training. We teach kids how to use it appropriately. It's sort of, if you can't beat them, join them kind of a thing. So instead of fighting it and saying you can't use AI, the approach that we're taking is let's use AI and let's use it appropriately because it's a part of their world. Did I answer everything, or was there another part of that?
I have said this before. It's become so pervasive almost in the last year. Right. We have to have some type of policy on AI. I don't disagree with establishing a policy, even if the policy is not perfect. But some of the things that this says that we're going to do, as far as ensuring that kids are using it appropriately. I think we probably will be wise to readdress this definitely within a year to refine this policy. Maybe PSBA is going to find some best practices and maybe even send us something there, because I think that the issue of being able to detect when it's not being used properly or when it's being used in place of learning, which is really something we need to guard against. We need to be able to be right on top of that, because catching them 2 weeks after they've gotten their grade doesn't really do any good. They might get disciplined for it, but they still have the grade. All right, any other questions or comments about that one?
Did you want to just use it for now and then revisit it later, or were you suggesting that maybe it get tabled?
Well, I would like to get the language. I think where it says the board directs is more appropriate than the district directs. I think those are minor editorial changes that we could make that change before we vote on it next week, because this is second reading, right? I can send out an email with every instance that I'm talking about in here to the board if you want to see that. Doesn't sound like there's any interest in either one of those. So, all right. I won't bring it up anymore then. All right, so is everybody ready to move on? All right, agenda item 6.04, obsolete books in the high school. There's a listing there. Any questions? Agenda item 6.05, there's a facilities obsolete item. It's a lawnmower with almost 3,000 hours on it. Any questions about that? Next one is obsolete item, CTE. There's two items there, a Dremel printer and an overhead projector. Any questions on that? Land lease agreement. This is something that has been waiting to come up. We've been all aware of this. Any questions or concerns about the contract? All right, next item is field trip, agenda item 6.08. FFA State Convention at Penn State University, June 12th or 10th through the 12th. Any questions on that? All right, it takes us to the personnel actions. I'll lump these all together. Is there any of those, Dr. Houck, you would like to brief the board on?
I don't think so. I think they're all pretty self-explanatory.
Okay. So we have the retirements, we have the resignations, terminations, leaves. You'll notice on the leaves, on the very, where it says medical leaves, those items are just the numbers instead of the name to protect the privacy of the individuals. Agenda item 6.12, the transfers. All right, next one is appointments, agenda item 6.13. Any questions about those? All right, agenda item 6.14, the new additions to, or changes to the approved driver listing. Any questions?
I just have a quick question. Next board meeting, do you lump these together like?
There'll be a consent agenda, yes, for the HR actions. All right, the bills paid report. Any questions there? All right, the treasurer's report, same. Any questions for that? All right, we'll look at the minutes. I'll lump all four of these together. Are there any changes, edits, or corrections to those minutes? All right, policies, first reading, agenda item 7.01. This is policy 234. I have a lot of questions about this one because it is a revision to a policy that is relatively short, and the new policy, even considering the check boxes that are there, it makes it, it adds a lot of additional conditions in here that aren't in the previous policy.
So I did find out there's a reason for that.
Okay.
This the policy that we currently have is, I think it dates back to what, 2020 maybe?
2021.
2021. So PSBA did release a 2024 version. We, however, did not bring that to the board because it was using the 2024 Title IX, whatever regulations. Knowing that there could have been a change to Title IX with the election of the new president, we just decided let's not do that. So if you were to compare this version to the 2024 version, it wouldn't be that much of a change.
Okay.
So that's why there's so much change, because it's going back 2 versions.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any other questions? All right, let's go to second public comment period. Anyone seeking to make public comment? Each speaker will have 2 minutes. Seeing none, the public comment period is closed. This takes us to comments and observations from the board. I don't remember which side I started on last time, but I'll start with you, Director Hogan.
I have nothing, thanks.
Okay.
Nothing, thank you.
Nothing from me.
No comments.
Okay.
Don't really have anything other than really enjoying my first year as a track parent. The outstanding team. They did their first invitational of the year. And the girls, I believe, came in 2nd overall. And there were some big schools there. They did amazing. And the boys, they all PR'd and had very impressive performances too. So I'm enjoying a new sport. So,
very good.
Yeah.
Nice.
I'll add to that. There's a write-up in, I think, the York Dispatch or Daily Record, one of those, where out of the whole invitational, they have one picture, and it's of 3 of our distance runners doing fist pumping each other
That's a
for a
great
job well done, and that was a great
And
picture.
it was
So
a mixed boys and girls medley race, so there's some of our boys and our girl runners together. So that was an entertaining event. Yeah, there was a lot of good pictures on that article.
So you're doing baseball and track?
Mm-hmm.
So track
Very
parent
busy.
and a baseball
And school
parent.
board.
Yeah, that's a lot.
we have a meet.
Yes, we do. I'm glad it wasn't tonight. We moved it from tonight till tomorrow. It's freezing today. But
Very good. All right, anything else?
nope, I don't think so.
Director Meese?
I don't have anything, thanks.
Okay. Dr. House?
Yeah, just one thing. We celebrated Mr. Emig at the YCal dinner for school directors. He was recognized for having served 20 years, both on the Dover School Board and the YAA, the York Adams Academy School Board. So we got to have a lovely dinner.
Let's give him a hand. I saw something I never thought I'd see, and you were in a suit. That was pretty impressive.
Don't get used to it.
wearing pants.
Someone had to say it.
I was.
Yeah. He and Director Wolverton also looking quite dapper. Yeah. They're together.
It's a good night out.
Nice picture.
Good.
All right. I just have comment to make about the committees. Committees are working quite well. I appreciate the leadership of the chairs doing that. We're getting business done. And good reports tonight, so I appreciate that. This is our first open meeting since we appointed Dr. Houck as the superintendent. So sitting in this seat, and I'm going to put you on the spot and ask you, how does it feel now versus being the acting?
Not a whole lot different. The biggest difference was I moved into the big office, so I waited until I was official to do that. So, yeah. So that's been nice. I have a corner office now.
Very good. Well, and the bid is out for the.
It is, and we already have some applicants, so we're looking through those.
Oh, very, very nice. Okay. Well, that's good to hear. All right, future meetings. We have a business meeting next Tuesday night, April the 15th, which is also tax day. So if you're going to make a choice of coming to the meeting or paying your taxes or filing an extension, make your choice. But we hope you'll be here. And just as a reminder, it was mentioned already tonight, but the Earned Income Tax Commission has their first meeting tomorrow night. It'll be held in this room, right? Is that right? And Solicitor Pratt will be here for that. And there'll be introduction. That's where they will appoint a chair and a vice chair and a secretary, a view of all the appropriate rules that they're going to be operating by, and set up the purpose. So it's very much a formation meeting, and we're looking forward to their subsequent meetings. Once the chair's in place, I think they'll probably set their own schedules and start doing the business of the commission in time to complete their work within 90 days, which is required by law. So, Mr. Lewis, this is your first meeting with us sitting in that chair. Do you have any comments to make?
I don't have anything substantive. Thanks for letting me hang out with you guys for a few hours.
Do you have anything not substantive?
I will take care of I'll look into that contract that you guys are going to vote on next week about the paving the road situation with Ben, and he'll be able to field some questions for you beforehand. But other than that, I've got nothing for you.
All right, thank you very much. All right, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All right, that was a race. Is there any objection? So that was Director Emig moved, Director McKinney seconded the motion. Hearing no objection, the meeting is adjourned.
There you go. Good deal.